UNI.MINDS, the online festival connecting industry and academia to #Innovate Together. Join us for a series of online events and get to know the latest in European and global development trends, innovation, and more. Here, you can find partners and ideas for your challenges and see how industry and academia can join forces to build a smarter, healthier, and sustainable future. The festival will take place online throughout November with an interdisciplinary program, expert panels, and more. Register at the festival website. We're looking forward to #Innovate Together.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being with us today. Welcome to UNI.MINDS Festival. Today we have Healthy Future panel from laboratory to patients. Today with us we'll have Malcolm Skingle, Rolf Miller, Gregor Majdic, Gregor Sesha, David Stival, and our moderator, Matjaž Peterka. I am Gabriela Droga, and I'm very happy to be with you today. To start, I will just share a little presentation. So the mission of this festival is to strengthen the industry-academia partnerships and to grow the innovation community in Slovenia and their interaction with the world community. More info on other UNI.MINDS sessions is available on the event website that you can find on the chat box. UNI.MINDS is being organized by the Knowledge Transfer Office of the University of Ljubljana and the Technology Transfer Office of the University of Maribor, together with the industry partners and with supporters from the innovation community. Our main partner this year will be Novartis Slovenia. The other partners and supporters are also listed. This event will not be possible without the collaboration and the support of the Republic of Slovenia and the European Union under the European Regional Development Fund. Now, I will also like to remind you that if you would like to, so today's, I'm sorry, I missed one slide. So today's event will be focusing on health, as I told before, and how to bring innovation from the lab to the patient. The panel will be followed by 3 panel sessions in breakout rooms that start after this panel. It will be the gene and cell therapy, drug discovery and health and ICT, but I will remind you later on that. You are all kindly invited to join one of the sessions and stay with us till the end. We also encourage you to place questions on the Zoom chat box. We will read them loud, or we will unmute you for you to put the questions yourselves. You are also invited to use UNI.MINDS themed backgrounds available on the link in the chat that is appearing now. And now I will present you, and I'm very happy to do so, our moderator for today, Dr. Matjaž Peterka. He has 20 years of experience in the research and development in pharmaceuticals and biotechnology. He was a member of the Council for Science and Technology of the Republic of Slovenia, and he is currently the CEO of COBIC and head of the Biopharma SI program, focusing on bioprocessing solutions for biopharma and biotech industry. Please, Matjaž, the screen is yours.
Gabriela, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you to organizers to set up this excellent event. So, as Gabriela already mentioned, today we will talk, if we say in one sentence, how to put the research results to the market. What are the ways to do it? What are the bottlenecks, and where Slovenia is in this process? Now, to do this, we have a panel of highly experienced professionals coming from different players in this field. And gentlemen, I would kindly ask you to join me on the stage, at least what is today called the stage. Yeah. Now, again, for all the attendees, please, if you have a question, post the question on the chat section, and we will try to answer your question. Now, I will shortly introduce all the panelists and actually ask the same question to every panelist. Yeah, and please, gentlemen, when I'm presenting to you, if you have something to add, please do so. Yeah. Now, today we have with us Malcolm Single. He's director of academic liaison at GSK. He's a highly experienced professional for pharmaceutical industry and has a lot of experience working with in this cooperation between academia and industry. So, Malcolm, first question for you: what is this biomed pharma business somehow special, and how is it different from other businesses? Yeah, let's say IT and so on.
Thanks very much for the question, and thanks very much to the organisers for the invitation to speak here today. It looks like a good panel. How is pharma and biotech different? Well, I think obviously we're very heavily regulated. The timelines to get a drug all the way through from the lab all the way through to market, it's obviously quite a long period of time, and there's a significant investment. I think a lot of people underestimate just how difficult it is to develop new therapeutic agents, and obviously the cost is phenomenal. So no one single organisation can actually bring all of the science together to take a molecule all the way. I mean, GSK's got more than 10,000 scientists around the world, excellent scientists, but each of them will collaborate with universities and research institutes to actually develop the science that they need to pull through to build the underlying scientific platform that we need to give us the confidence to invest heavily in the clinical trials and taking things all the way through to man.
Okay. Thank you. This is a start. The next panelist is Rolf Miller. He's a managing director of the Helmholtz Institute for Pharmaceutical Research. He's a professor at the university, and he's also a co-founder or pharma biotech company. Rolf, if you would like to add something, otherwise the same question: how is this business different from others?
Yeah, thank you. And also thank you for having me around. So I think the more you will ask that question, the more similar answers you will get. I think Malcolm already put up the most important issues. The long-term vision that is required, I think, is extraordinarily different from all the other business, especially if you ask about IT. I mean, for them, something from the first idea to the market, maybe 12 months. You know, for a drug, it's something like 12 years. So that's quite a difference. We are not talking vaccines now, which can be, as we hopefully see soon, faster. But if it comes to drug development, we certainly see a long time period, enormous investments, and this is really hard to understand or to make clear on the academic side. That's at least the experience that we have seen here in all the collaborations with industry. And also making clear to the public what we do is also quite difficult because these timelines are also difficult to sell. If you just imagine your public relations manager is asked what you're doing, and the first question that will appear is when is your drug going to be sold in the pharmacy, and you're in the first 3 years of the development. You're always very defensive in your answer, and that is quite different in other businesses.
Thank you. Now, with us is Professor Gregor Serša. He's a researcher, professor, working in this translational part of the research now for many years. Gregor, same question. How are you looking on this biomedicine or health business?
First of all, hello to everybody and thanks for the invitation. Well, I would say I've been in translational research for many, many years, and we have been developing treatment, or we have been applying into the medical field electrochemotherapy for the last 30 years. And recently we started endeavor to do the same with gene therapy. And it seemed to be a very difficult task. And we are now facing all these problems that have been put on the table just now with the previous two speakers. And I would say, if you have not experienced that, you will never know how difficult is and will be to bring something new therapy into the clinics.
Okay, thank you. Now, Professor Gregor Majdic, professor at the University of Ljubljana, University of Maribor, a researcher and also a co-founder of the spin-off company called AnimaCell. Gregor, your view. Sorry, Gregor, we cannot hear you. Can you please switch on the audio?
I apologize.
Okay.
I'm on now. So not to repeat what my predecessor says, which is certainly true for the biotech companies and especially for the human health, I will maybe focus and give some hints from the veterinary medicine in field where I worked also in translational medicine. Our company was established for providing stem cell treatments for animals. And in veterinary medicine, it's a little bit easier. The regulations are a little bit less strict, so you can get to the market a little bit quicker. However, saying this, you still need a lot of effort, a lot of work, and also a lot of finance to get approvals from the regulatory bodies. So it's still, even if it's much easier, it's still much more difficult than, for example, IT industry that you mentioned. So, and I think here, the funding is very necessary for startup companies, for spin-out companies, that they can get to the stage when they can attack the markets.
Thank you. And another panelist, David Stibal. David is actually investment manager at a company in Prague. He was a researcher and now he moved to the investment part of the stage. David, your view, please.
Good morning, and thanks for having me. I think most of the differences, the problems have been named already. The biotech field is slower, it's more expensive, it's regulated. But perhaps one point that hasn't been mentioned, and we struggle with this quite often, investing into startups. If you were to found a startup in biotech field, it's much more difficult, in my opinion, to find the expertise you need. Comparing again with the IT field, there's not nearly as many preclinical or clinical experts out there willing to come into your company and start a development of a drug or of a device with you, just because they're not, they're not as easily accessible, and there's just not that many of them.
Okay, David, thank you. So maybe just to start another round of questions, let's see how different players in the field approach this knowledge and technology transfer. Maybe we start with Malcolm. Malcolm, how is big pharma handling this technology uptake from the academia? What's your approach? What is important? How to get to you guys?
Okay, so I mean, obviously, it does help when you're from a multinational, large pharmaceutical company, because people do want to work with you. Sometimes I always say sometimes it's difficult for me to convince someone to collaborate with us for the first time, but never thereafter, because once they've collaborated with us once, they appreciate the quality of our science, the platforms and the tools that we have available, which helps drive their science. And of course, the joint publication thing, there's this myth that industry don't want to publish. Well, that's really not true. I mean, we publish, we have a higher index FW field weighted citation impact number than most universities. So how do we do it? Well, we have scientists who obviously read the literature, who obviously used to go pre-COVID to scientific conferences. They would meet people, they would know the experts in their field, they would benchmark from the literature. You can tell a lot about an organisation, frankly, by looking at their publication profile. And I would recommend to academics that they also do that for companies when they're looking to select their partners. It's a competitive space. You know, this is sponsored by another great company, Novartis. There are lots of good pharmaceutical companies out there who are competing in this world. I see the value of what my group do. I was 20 years a neuroscientist, and I've now done this for over 20 years. When I was a neuroscientist, I had collaborations around the world which were helping me drive my science for my group. And had I had a research team which was 20 rather than 10, these were the sorts of things that I would have done. But of course, dipping into academia and diverse cultures and diverse way of thinking, you're getting that lateral thought coming into your programs. I can give the same lecture in GSK and externally, and I will almost know what the questions are going to be in GSK because we're all trained in a certain way. If I give that same lecture in a university, question comes from left field from an academic, something that I haven't even thought of because they view things differently. And I think you need to tap into that diversity. Quality of science is taken as a given. We only play with people if they are good scientists because we are good scientists. And you need the best scientists, the best platforms, the best molecules to absolutely drive your science. Or you're not going to get anywhere. Well, there are three big questions that are really expensive for us. Which target? If you get the wrong target up front, then you're dead in the water. Then which drug or biologic to actually prosecute against that target? And then once you've got that molecule, what's the killer experiment once you start getting into humans? What's the killer experiment that's going to show that it's better than the gold standard compound? Or indeed, you know, what's the thing that's going to kill it? If it hasn't got the efficacy that you kind of hope for. So collaboration for us is almost in our blood. You know, we've got 600 collaborations ongoing at the moment in 6 continents, over 30 odd countries. And that's increasing all the time, frankly, as developing world science bases get stronger and there's stuff that they have to offer.
Okay, thank you. David, your view as an investor, what are you looking when you are, searching for a project, for a potential companies? What are you looking at? What is important for you?
Well, I think that what's just been said by Malcolm is true for us as well. We're looking for something that will be possible to partner or to sell to major companies in 2 to 5 years. So our initial assessment has to be pretty much the same. We're looking for good science. We're looking for, great experiments, great controls. We are mostly, and I've kind of mentioned that before, we're looking for a team in the project. So that has to be working, has to be functional. And we're trying, obviously, to gauge the market. We don't want to have 15 projects of the very same indication of the very same type of molecule in our portfolio. So we need to see that what the team is doing, what the project is doing is innovative and it has the potential to be sold eventually or to become an interesting product on the market.
Okay, you mentioned the team. How important is the team? Maybe question for both of you, for Malcolm and Dalit. How important is team? How important are people? Their training, personality, whatever.
Well, to be honest, if a scientist comes to us with already kind of an established team, the training itself doesn't matter as much. What we're looking for mostly is the motivation. And that is a huge problem, I think, in general in tech transfer, that it's hard to find a motivated team that's actually willing to leave the bench, leave the lab and go into a startup. So what we need, if we get kind of a proposal or if you get asked for an investment from a startup, we really need to see that the team is there, they have all the expertise that is needed, or they're willing to kind of work with us and get the expertise on board later on. Without this, the project is kind of doomed to fail. It needs to be working, it needs to be functional for those 2 to 5 years before we can actually get anywhere. So without it, we can't really work with it at all.
Okay, Malcolm, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I mean, you know, team is everything. You can't possibly do anything this big on your own. So it's the small teams, and then in fact the larger collaborative teams, which are so important to projects. The wise people surround themselves with the skills that they don't personally have, rather than recruiting people in their own image, because obviously you want that diversity, and you want people to push back against some of the things that you're doing. The other thing that would be my observation with respect to teams is that they have to change with the progression of a project. And what you will have the academic who frankly hasn't got the nerve to jump into the business and put everything into it. They want that safety net of remaining to be the academic, but then having the biotech company on the side. And frankly, you can't be half pregnant. You need, if you're going to drive an idea and you're going to drive a company, you absolutely need to drive it. And what you will see is that as a molecule in biotech, we've got a lot of friends who are in biotech, if as the molecule or the treatment will progress through that, you need different skills. The later on down the line, you have to have relatively early engagement from regulatory. So you know that the good science that you're doing is packaged in such a way that it's going to tick all the boxes for the regulators. So yeah, team is absolutely essential. And if you haven't got a strong team and you haven't got a strong leader, you know, your product's unlikely to go all the way.
Thank you. Now, gentlemen, if you want to comment, please join in. I will not ask all the questions, but if you want to say something, please just, say. Rolf, you have experience working with a big pharma probably, and also with the investors. What's your story?
So how many hours do I have?
You have 3 minutes.
I would like to push in a few comments. I think it very much depends on the area of research that you're in. So all that we are discussing now seems to be related to small molecules. I think when it comes to biologics or antibodies, the regulatory path already different, vaccinations different, and the area, the indications also very different. So we work mostly in the antibacterial and antiviral space. And in antibacterial space, there's a broken market. So everything we are talking here is not really true, because there's no market. If you do antivirals, there has been a market, and now there is a supermarket. So things can change within a couple of months. I think the real issue from my perspective is that in academia, we don't really train the team that has been mentioned by Malcolm. We train the people that get to the point where they find an early hit, where they have a super assay, cool target, and maybe find some chemical compound that may be doing something in that assay. But usually there is very little knowledge in all the properties that the compounds have to acquire or have to have from the start, which are needed, like all the ADME properties, tox, the regulatories. I don't see this taught a lot at the universities. And I think this is the reason why we have little success, at least in my country, in moving from very good ideas to companies. And that also sort of distracts the investors, because the team would typically be would consist of a number of great scientists who have nice ideas but no clue about the developmental path. And that is very early on clear to the investors, as David has pointed out, and then they will not receive an investment. So we work at an extra university space. In Germany, we have a large system of extra university research institutions like Max Planck and Helmholtz and Fraunhofer, who are outside of the university space, but which have a mission. And that mission-driven research is at least sort of translational. We still have all these, you know, sometimes it really gets, you get spread thin because the people that join you, they at the start of their career don't know whether they want to have an academic or an industrial career. And at that point, you have to make sure they get their publication output. This is also important for industry. For some reasons, I never understood German industry for quite a while, didn't care about it, but it has certainly come back. So publication also plays a larger role there. But we have to see the second currency in industry, and that is patents and the translatability. And I think we are still not, at least from what I see, we are not doing the best job in making people aware of it and in training them in the expertise that is required to make use of it, to get it going.
Okay, thank you. Gregor Majdic, what would be view from Slovenia? We heard now some issues from Germany, which I think it's, you know, a much higher level than we are. What's your story? What were your bottlenecks actually during your, you know, spinning off from the university?
It's a long story now. Actually, our company started 8 years ago, so I think that's quite well that it's still on the market. Perhaps I started everything a bit naively. I thought that when you invent something that helps to the dogs, it will sell by itself. Then you learn as a scientist that the market doesn't work like that. You need to have people on the field. You need to have people all the time going around the veterinarians to sell this. And that was the main bottleneck in our expansion. As I said, we are now 8 years on the market. We have fairly reasonable markets in Austria and in Slovenia, but the progress is very slow because we cannot expand rapidly. It's all organic growth, which is very slow. We were looking for the investments, but usually when we talk, we were selected in several like Pioneers Festival in Vienna and some other festivals as one of the top promising companies. But when we start serious talk with the investors, it always stopped when we show them our business plan and we say that maybe 7-8 years is maybe the turnover point when the company will start to bring money back in. So I think that's a big problem for us. And I think that's a general problem at the moment. That's my personal feeling, that investors are looking for much quicker turnover than it's possible in the biotech industry. So I think here, if there would be more support from the government, it would be much easier. In Slovenia, as far as I know, the only real support is the so-called Podjetniški sklad, which gives very early startup companies something like 100,000 euros, which is not really that much. If you, for example, you would want to register our treatment with EMA, which would be possible, that would cost us at least 200 to 300,000 euros, and at the moment we don't have that money. So this is, and if we go back to the early starts, I think this changed now quite a lot, but when I started to think about that, I didn't have any idea even how to formally establish a company, and there was very little support at that time at the university. This now changed. The office for knowledge transfer is now much stronger, much better, so it's much easier for people who would do it now. But I think we need more support. We need more, not just support, but enthusiasm for people. We have to encourage young people also at the university to venture into such projects, to not be afraid to go into spin-out companies to transfer the knowledge into the economy.
Malcolm, please.
I think that you have to get to people young. So 25 years ago, one of the UK research funding councils started up this scheme in entrepreneurship training. It's called the YES scheme, Young Entrepreneurs Scheme. And what they do is they take postgrads, so kids doing their PhDs, and they pull them together in teams of 4 or 5. And they're from different departments, but from the same university. So it's like almost like an inter-university competition in the UK. And for 3 or 4 days, they come together. They have a couple of talk sessions on development and starting up a company. but they have to work on a make-believe business plan. But what they do is they get access, importantly, to experts who are free, who give up their time in 15-minute aliquots. And these might be people in marketing, intellectual property, legal, finance, or even scientists who are in a similar field, or indeed entrepreneurs who have started up companies themselves. And then they work together, and then at the end of it, they have a competition in the regions. And then just before Christmas, 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas, they the finalists then come together and they pitch to a Dragon's Den style thing. And it's all make-believe. And I've sat on this panel since it started, and you get lost. You know, I'm like David, I think I really am an investor, and you're kind of asking questions about these projects that are make-believe. And it sounds really naff, but actually, you know, 6,000 science postgraduates have now gone through that training, participated in that scheme. Many of them have been so enthused by the process, it gets them thinking differently. It's not just all about postdocing or perhaps going to the US to do something. You know, they think about the company, and many of them now have got their own companies. Many of them phone me, you know, because they use their networks. They want to get access to people in a certain field because they've got their next idea, and they're looking for their funding. So I think this was done by one of the research councils, and it was so successful that it then expanded to the others. I just think you need to plant these seeds. Often you will have a student working with a professor, and the professor sees that person as the person who's the fodder to make their next publication, and they kind of bring them into a parochial tracking. You know, you need people to get out and see what it's like in different quarters. If you've got someone who's worked in academia, works in biotech, works in pharma, they know how the whole game works. They're always going to have a job because they're going to have the experiences they require to drive the science to the next level.
Gregor Majdic, you want to comment something, right?
Yeah, maybe I can just add that actually my experience was something like that. The person who heads the company AnimaCell is a young diploma student that was working in my lab, and he's really talented, really good. He's very good at the marketing, at the organizational, and also in the lab. So actually, I'm not working with the AnimaCell company on the day-to-day basis. He's the main person, and he's very good and very successful. So yes, I completely agree. You have to give it away. You have to give it to other younger people who can progress with things like that. Thank you.
Now, people training. Gregor Serša, you are now working on a project that you would like to push on the market, right? How do you see the situation in Slovenia? What are the bottlenecks?
Well, yeah, I would say that the bottleneck is basically lack of knowledge. We don't know what we need to do in order to bring some product on the market. We don't have training. And basically this was the challenge, and is currently the challenge in our project. We were going forward, and then we had to at some point step backward and go forward again. So instead of going backwards and forward, we would like to have some support somewhere in order to go forward. And the next step that is going to be a challenge again, as you are talking, coming or going to the market will be a huge challenge. Fortunately, in this consortium that we work on together on smartgene.si project, there are also industrial partners. And I believe that sharing the knowledge between those will help us all to bring our new treatment approach sooner or later also on the market. I am not going to be involved in that, but I believe that younger colleagues in my team and the other teams might be interested also in taking some steps into the industry or the market field as well.
Okay, so definitely something what we have in Slovenia is this are trainings, yeah, but they are not constant. They are appearing now and then disappearing. So we are definitely missing this. I would say the environment, support from the environment to do what is necessary and to select the right people and to train them with these soft skills. Gregor. please.
I think what we are also lacking is still the awareness and the culture of spin-out companies, of the startup companies. We are talking a lot in recent years, but I think as a nation, we still don't understand, or maybe just a politics who don't understand that this is necessary for the economic progress of the country, that we have to invest into R&D, and this will come out as novel companies that will produce high added value products, and this is the only way forward in economic progress. And I think we still hear at the university sometimes that that's not part of academia, that this should be completely separated. We should prohibit establishing of spin-out companies, partially because of the bad experiences in the past when some people were actually trying to do wrong things with these spin-out companies to channel the money from the academia into the private pockets. But proper startup companies, and this, I think this is also a problem.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Thank you. I wouldn't go now to the politics and how the science should be financed, because this is a never-ending story. I would ask different questions. What different players in the field should do to facilitate technology transfer, to facilitate the spin-off companies from the universities, from the institute? So the players are, of course, large companies, big pharma, investors, government, and researchers. Rolf, what would be your suggestion? What specific players needs to do in order to facilitate this process?
Yeah, so maybe picking up on what has been said, I think I would still differentiate between, teaching founders what to do. That's something that is still relatively easy in my perspective in comparison, teaching founders in the drug business what to do. So a founder could be a founder for an IT company. We, for example, our university has quite a history. There's incubators, there is teaching around what needs to be done. A lot of companies get started. My previous remarks were rather towards teaching people who want to do this in the biotech or even in the drug research business. And I think this is what Malcolm alluded to earlier. There it really needs much more in-depth knowledge, earlier training. So that's something only the universities and the attached institutions can do, where you can go up to a PhD. And that's really of utmost importance. On the technology transfer side, what is very useful is for these institutions to have sort of a technology transfer board. So this is how we deal with it. So there's a mixture of internal and external experts that come together, usually quarterly, and then have a look at the translational projects of the institute and rate them. And especially having experts from industry in there who are willing to kill projects is important. Usually you don't want to hear about killing projects, but that's something especially the academics have to learn. If you have an attrition rate, and if internally it's always difficult to get to a point that a decision is made that project is not going to make it. For this process, at least in our institution, it has become very valuable to have a mixed board with external reviewers who would then rate the projects, and if they don't get rated accordingly, we have to stop them. And this is the only way to rechannel the required resources for the next project, which looks better in terms of chances to get to the market. So I think some sort of technology transfer board and a close interaction with people who are spending a couple of hours, let's say per quarter, looking specifically at the project, not always new people. It has to be the same people who see the progress, who critically review them, and whose review, that may be also something important, whose review is valued and not feared. It really has to be seen as a positive part of the whole process. And at least here in Germany, too many people are afraid of a project being killed. Yeah,
Okay.
that's sort of a stigma. I think it's much better to have a project which didn't work. You get the experience, you do the next one, and the probability that the next one will make it is much higher then. So I think also this atmosphere of having the evaluation being a positive part of the whole game is important.
Okay. Now we slowly will need to finish. Yeah, the time is very short. Malcolm, in 30 seconds, what can big pharma do what should big pharma do to support this innovative environment?
I think we're already doing it. I mean, we are collaborating. This knowledge exchange is very much in a two-way thing. The people we collaborate with, they learn as much from us as we learn from them. We both have different things to offer. We're certainly supporting financially. World-leading science is taken as a given. You know, the whole of this is underpinned by people doing world-leading science. And my take-home message would be, you know, if you're in a small company, or frankly, if you're in a small country, you absolutely need to focus on what you really are world-leading at and make that niche your own. You can't spread it so finely and let everybody do what they want, because otherwise you'll always be second division and not Premier Division.
Thank you. David, maybe 15 seconds, your final thoughts. We are close to the end.
I'll just use your previous question. I think what the investors and the investment funds and the groups should be doing more is kind of serve as an informational bridge between the big pharma and the academia. I think we should inform the startups, the potential startups, the teams, the professors, what is needed, what is absolutely necessary for us to actually invest. And that comes in different shapes and colors, obviously. And we should really try to kind of further the information about what is necessary to actually be successfully partnered with big pharma, because those there are specific requirements, they change over time. There's kind of a package, as mentioned as well, that is needed. And these things are not always as clear, are not always as known as they should be, I think.
Okay, we have one question from the audience, Professor Damian Miklaučić. The mindset in Slovenia is small, in my opinion. Slovenian researchers should provide knowledge and transfer knowledge to Slovenian companies. Slovenian companies in biomedicine pharma are not strong enough to fund this transfer and bring it to the market. Am I wrong? Gregor, both Gregors, you have 15 seconds each to answer. Do you agree with this or not?
Definitely we lack support and investors. I would say that we lack also technology transfer office. And I would say that I strongly encourage the focus in the specific field and perseverance of the idea in a specific field, not to scrabble around with different ideas.
Thank you. Gregor Majdic, 15 seconds.
I partially agree with Damian, but not completely. I think we are also not ambitious enough. I think there are possibilities for developing innovative products also in Slovenia, also in the biotech sector, but both academia and industry are not ambitious enough.
So, gentlemen, thank you very much. We are done. Gabriela.
Yes, so we really have to finish. So thank you very much to each and every one of you for your collaboration, for this service you provided today to us. This discussion can continue in Huva, so please stay tuned. And we are moving now to concrete opportunities and challenges the industry and academia are facing in the following topics. So you can choose between 3 different breakout rooms: gene and cell therapy, drug discovery, health and ICT. In the chat box, you will see 3 links. So please just follow through the link you are interested in. If you are interested in the content of the other rooms, you can also watch them later on, because everything is being recorded. So
thank you all. Bye.
Bye to everybody. Thank you. It was very, very insightful.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.